Everyone thought I'd finally lost it. My son, my doctor, the pastor who has known me since I had dark hair and strong knees, every single one of them looked at me the same way. The way people look at someone they've already started grieving, but I hadn't lost anything. For the first time in years, I was finding something. I am 95 years old, and I live with 3 girls who weren't alive when I was already old. Let me back up, because before you decide this is a sweet little story about an eccentric grandmother, I need you to understand where I was, not physically, not the house, not the neighborhood, where I was inside, because that is the part nobody talks about. That is the part that almost finished me. When you lose a spouse after decades, people bring food. They sit with you. They hold your hand. They say the things people say. And then slowly, one by one, they go back to their lives, which is right, which is how it should be. But what they don't tell you is what is left behind, not grief. I knew grief I could name and carry. What is left behind is the silence. And I don't mean quiet. I mean a silence that has weight, the kind that fills a house like water fills a jar. You can move through it. You can go through the motions, make your tea, water your plants, watch the evening news, but it is always there, heavy and getting heavier. I told myself I was fine. For 2 years, I told myself that I am a woman who raised children alone while working full-time. I am not the kind of person who falls apart, but there is a difference between not falling apart and actually living. And somewhere in those 2 years, I had confused the two. Then my body made the decision for me, the way bodies do when you stop listening. I came down the back steps on an ordinary afternoon, missed the last one, went down hard, not dramatically, nothing broke, but I couldn't get back up. I sat on that cold floor for a long time, long enough to stop being scared of the fall and start being scared of something else entirely. Nobody is coming, not because they don't love me, because they don't know, because I am here in this house and the world outside is moving. And I have become the kind of person who could lie on a floor for hours before anyone thought to check. That realization doesn't leave you. It sits down next to you on that cold floor and it stays. My son started making calls. I understood. I didn't fight him on it at first. He found a place, reputable, clean, the kind of place that has a garden out front and a newsletter and scheduled activities. I went to look. I walked through the hallways. I watched the residents, not the staff, not the facilities, the people, and what I saw was not cruelty. It was not neglect. It was something harder to name and harder to fix. It was people who had been made comfortable and invisible, settled into routines that moved the hours without disturbing them, waiting in the gentlest possible way for something I don't think any of them could have named. One woman looked at me from across the common room, just looked, the way people look when they recognize something in a stranger, when they see that you are still in there, and hoping someone will notice. I walked back to my son's car. I said, "Not yet, not like this." And he said, "Then what, Mom? If you were watching this and you've stood in that exact space, that then what space? I want you to know that I see you, because it is one of the loneliest coordinates a person can occupy. Every option in front of you feels like a surrender of some kind. Stay home alone and pretend the silence isn't winning. Or go somewhere safe and trade yourself for the safety. Neither one felt like living. I wasn't ready to stop living. I found the listing by accident. The kind of accident that, looking back, feels less like coincidence and more like an answer. 3 young women, a house with a spare room, more space than they needed, more rent than they wanted to carry alone. I called. The girl who answered was kind but clearly unprepared for what she heard. "How old are you?" she asked, after I explained. "Old enough to know what I want," I told her. She laughed. "Can you come see the place?" I could. I want you to understand that I am not a reckless woman. I have never been reckless, but I have lived long enough to know the difference between a risk and a lifeline. and sometimes they look almost identical from the outside. The first week was loud. I won't pretend otherwise. These girls moved through that house like time was something they had too much of. Music at hours I had decided were for sleeping. Conversations that seemed to happen in every room at once. Footsteps, laughter. The occasional sound of something dropping followed by a word I will not repeat. I sat in my room the second night and I thought, what have you done? And then something shifted. I can't tell you exactly what or exactly when, but slowly, gradually, like light finding a window. The noise stopped being noise and started being life. Just life, happening loudly and imperfectly and close enough to touch. And I had forgotten, Lord, I had forgotten what it felt like to be near it. I want you to drop a comment on this video right now and tell me if you've ever forgotten what it feels like to be near life, because I think more of us have than we admit. About a month in, one of the girls had a bad night. You could hear it without trying, the kind of quiet someone makes when they're trying to fall apart without being noticed. I got up, made 2 cups of tea, not gently. She opened the door with the face of someone who has been crying long enough to be embarrassed about it. I didn't mean to wake you. You didn't, I said. I was up. We sat at the kitchen table. I didn't offer advice. I didn't explain. I didn't fill the space with words the way people do when silence makes them nervous. I just stayed. And after a while, she said, thank you for not telling me. It'll all be fine. I nodded. I don't know if it will be, I told her honestly, but you won't get through it alone. And that is something. She looked at me for a long moment. How are you this calm about everything? I smiled. I've been alive long enough to know which things deserve the panic. She laughed, the wet kind, the kind that comes right after tears. And I thought to myself, sitting in that kitchen at an hour that used to belong only to silence. There it is. There is the reason. Here is what I know now that I did not know 2 years ago. What we call loneliness is not about being alone. Some of the loneliest I have ever been was in a room full of people who were going through the motions of caring. What loneliness actually is being unseen. It is moving through your days and having no one register that you passed, no one to notice you didn't eat, no one to hear you drop something, no one to catch the look on your face when you remember something painful. No witness. That is the word. You need a witness. Not a caretaker, not a schedule, not a nurse who checks your chart and moves to the next room. A witness, someone over whom your existence registers, someone who notices. In that house, I am noticed, not as a responsibility, not as a situation to be managed, as a person. They knock to ask if I need anything before they go out. They save me the good chair without being asked. They include me in conversations not out of politeness, but because they have decided I am interesting. And in return, I give them what 95 years of living gives you, the ability to give: perspective, steadiness, the particular kind of calm that comes from having already survived most of what they're afraid of. I am not naive. I know this season will not last forever. My body is 95 years old. There will come a time when I need more than this, more than 3 young women and a warm kitchen and the sound of someone else being alive down the hall. I know that, but that time is not today. And I have wasted too many todays already, holding them lightly while waiting for the hard thing that was coming. The hard thing is always coming, live today anyway. Something happened last week that I keep coming back to. I was moving through the kitchen and I knocked something off the counter. Nothing important, just a noise. Before I even bent to pick it up, a voice came from 2 rooms away. You okay in there? Fine, I called back. Just clumsy. Okay, tea's on, if you want some. That exchange took 10 seconds. I've been turning it over in my mind for 7 days, not because it was remarkable, because of how unremarkable it was, because it was just normal. Someone heard me. Someone asked. Someone went right back to their day knowing I was fine. That is it. That is the whole thing. After 2 years of a silence that had weight to be heard and checked on and then gently, casually released back into the morning. Do you know what that does to a person? Do you know what it is to be casually included in someone else's life after years of being on the outside of all of them? It is everything. It is quietly, completely everything. I am not telling you to do what I did. I am not telling you there is one answer. I am telling you that the answer you've been handed may not be the only one, that the options laid in front of you may not be the full menu, that somewhere between I can't manage alone and I can't bear to disappear. There is a door. It might look ridiculous from the outside. Most doors worth walking through do. And for those of you who have someone aging in your life, someone who says they're fine and means it less every month, someone who fills their days and calls it living, please go sit with them, not to check on them, not to assess or arrange or plan, just to sit, to be a witness. It costs you an afternoon. For them, it can be the difference between enduring a life and actually living one. I am 95 years old. Some mornings the stairs remind me, the joints remind me, the mirror reminds me. But then I come down to that kitchen and there is noise and mess and youth and the beautiful chaos of people who still think they have all the time in the world, and something in me lifts, not because I've forgotten what I've lost, but because loss is not the whole story. And I am still here to keep adding to it, still here, still seen, still against all reasonable expectation, alive. If this reached you in a place you didn't expect, leave it in the comments. Not for me, for the person who scrolls down there at 2 a.m, sitting in their silence, believing there is no door left. Let them find your words instead. And if you want more of this, more of the things that take a lifetime to learn, subscribe to this channel, because I am not finished yet, and neither are you.